video is an interview with Bianka Grant, who's also known as Badiva. Badiva is a British music artist who I've known for a while. Her work is very erotic and proudly defends the idea that female power is rooted in trading sex. Like many sexual performers, she comes under attack from a variety of prudes, and she strongly defends herself against these people. You could call Bediva a feminist, although of course many feminists strongly object to this form of expression and believe that the sex trade undermines women. Recently, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion hit #1 in the UK charts with a hip-hop track called WAP, which stands for Wet Ass Pussy. WAP generated a backlash from many commentators because of its proud representation of powerful female sexuality. The backlash came both from conservative commentators like Ben Shapiro and supposedly progressive ones like Russell Brand, who tried to criticize WAP from a feminist perspective and ended up just looking like a prude. Bianca and I discussed Brand's video later in this interview. Personally, I think WAP is sexy as hell, very provocative, and also amusing in the way that the performers are clearly trolling the conservatives and feminists who are going to find their work offensive. Bianca's work is in the same broad genre as WAP, although it's very much in the London urban music style, which is heavily derived from Jamaican music. She's a Londoner of West Indian background, so her music is in the British urban style rather than the American. I really enjoyed the interview. We talked about music, sex, race, and sexually repressed people who have a problem with sexually confident women. A warning at this point, there's also some discussion of Bianca's own experience of sexual abuse and how this affected her. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, follow on social media, and all that stuff. I'll add both Bediva's and my links in the pinned comments below this video. So we began the interview with me playing WAP. Now the bit I could see, and the bit you're not going to see, because I didn't record it properly, was Bianca twerking, so I'm very sorry about that. Instead you get 20 seconds of me dancing in my chair, which is almost as good, right? The tune begins with a sample of a man singing, "There's some whores in this house, there's some whores in this house," which I thought was the perfect introduction to this discussion. There's some whores in this house, there's some whores in this house, there's some whores in this house. Beat it up, nigga, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. So put this pussy right in your face, swipe your nose like a credit card. That's what it kind of sounds and looks like. So Badiva's in the house.
Hey!
Whoop whoop.
Sex and censorship.
Greetings, Bediva.
Greetings. I know you're not called Sex and Censorship. How do we address you?
I guess the channel's kind of called Sex and Censorship, but I've called it Jerry Barnett, the Sex and Censorship channel now, because it's all about me. So yeah, I'm the face of the channel. And
yes.
But yeah, and so you've come on board as our WAP correspondent. So
I am,
which is a fantastic position to have. And yeah.
And I'm honoured to have the position as the UK WAP correspondent, and honoured to be a guest on Sex and Censorship.
So what does WAP stand for?
Wet Ass Pussy.
Thanks. That's gonna be my ringtone from now on. So WAP.
And in the UK, that's Wet Ass Pussy.
Yeah, it doesn't sound nearly as good, does it?
No, we probably wouldn't say that phrase at all.
We wouldn't. It sounds like someone's kind of wet themselves or something.
Yeah. It's just not. It's not for the UK accent, guys.
But yeah, no, Wet Ass Pussy, it works, especially in Badiva style or Cardi B style. So, if you could start by introducing yourself. I've known you for a couple of years at least, but you're a kind of music performer, erotic performer, not to mention a kind of political activist. So yeah, let's hear Bediva in her own words.
I'm Britain's first femme fatale, otherwise known as the Trap Dita Von Teese or the Margarita Mamacita. Those are some of my aliases online. So yes, I do dancehall, I do erotica, and I've also worked in and around adult entertainment. Both as a hostess, as a content creator, and I also have an OnlyFans where I do erotic storytelling But that's another thread or another video.
Yeah, I mean, we could touch on that, but at least tell people where they can find your OnlyFans channel.
You can find my OnlyFans at onlyfans.com /bad fandom.
Bad fandom. Great. So,
Bad fandom.
And this is what we're talking about today, really, because it's that intersection of music and sex, and
absolutely,
and where you can't really draw the line anymore. Where does sexual performance end and where does musical performance begin?
And also, was there ever an actual line in the first place, and who drew it?
That's an interesting question, because I've always found a lot of female singers very sexy and erotic, however they dress. I mean, it's in the voice and the attitude and so on. So yeah,
and also sex is also used to sell items like maybe cars, colognes. Like one of my favorite adverts is the Jador advert. Is the lady called Charlie Ferron or Charlie Ferron, I think her name is. She's from South Africa. She's in the gold in the pool. Do you know that advert?
Right. I kind of watch perfume adverts without watching them. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, they're incredibly beautifully put.
Yes, there is something about perfume adverts, isn't there?
But it's, as you say, sex and sex is at the root of commerce and music and all of these things naturally go together. But it's only recently.
There is a line between. Well, I don't know. I do believe there's a line between erotica and porn, to my understanding, and it's mainly the women in the industries that draw that line. For example, you might have burlesque, which is a form of stripping. But if you speak to a burlesque dancer and you call them a stripper, they might be offended.
Yeah, there's a lot of lines within the industry.
There are so many complexities in regards to how women view sex work and whether or not they want to identify as a sex worker. Because there is a stigma attached to sex work and prostitution. Even the two words, sex worker, prostitution, because some sex workers say, I'm not a prostitute, I'm a sex worker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had that discussion with friends.
I'm not a prostitute, I'm not a whore, I'm a prostitute, I'm a sex worker, I'm a stripper, I'm not a... And it's kind of like, well, you know what, guys? Let's not get into the semantics of the word, because it's all slut shaming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a friend of mine who's a sex worker told me off for using the word prostitute on Twitter. She doesn't like it. And I've got another friend loves to call herself a whore, a hooker. Like Amber Rose, slut walk. Yeah. So so when I say there's some whores in this house, that's something that will either deeply offend you or you can own that.
Do you know what? My partner can't stand it. As soon as he heard it, he was like, there's some whores in this house. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No. His face changed, his demeanor changed, and he's someone that listens to gangster rap and he's quite laid back and very open-minded, and he goes, I don't know about that line. So it goes to show that even people who are liberal and are down, they actually are prudish when it comes to that word as well. And at first I thought, and some people have basically changed the word. They're saying that there's some hoes in this house. They won't use the word whore. So they'll write it out and they'll go, there's some hoes in this house, because they prefer the term hoe. So I actually had to Google the term. I thought, is it saying whore or hoe? Because when you hear him speaking, there's some whores in this house, there's some hoes in this house. It's kind of like, you can't actually hear the actual word sometimes. So I actually had to Google.
Apparently that's sampled from another hip hop track. I'm not sure which track. Do you know?
Apparently it's a song from the 90s that was really, really popular.
Right. It's not one I remember.
Some women on my Facebook, they were like, oh my God, it's mainly the American women, when I hear that line, there's some whores in this house, that's what gets me going, girl.
Yeah,
and then the British women are like, oh, you know what? I almost pressed the song off when I heard that line.
So, but yeah, there's this thing that some people describe as the hierarchy. You know, to the extent that sexual commerce is at every level of society, but women kind of tend to look down at women that they consider beneath them in the hierarchy.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I can give you some examples. Cardi B said that she was starting an OnlyFans, and she felt the need to make a disclaimer that there wouldn't be anything sexually explicit on there, because maybe some people were asking, but this disclaimer went out into all the blogs that Cardi's explicitly stated there'll be nothing sexual on her OnlyFans. And obviously she felt the need to do that to differentiate and separate herself from the sex workers using OnlyFans.
Yeah, which is, and you know, and you could argue, if you see the WAP video, to me that's very sexual. You know, that it's so.
That's some of the content that you'd see on OnlyFans.
Sure.
That the sex workers would do.
Yeah. Let's talk about your work. So I found a few tracks of yours, and you have two of your tracks. You have pretty good videos up on YouTube on Badiva TV.
Yes.
So I think my favorite is between somewhere either Captain Hook or Margarita. But so you've been making tracks over the past couple of years or so. Which is your favorite track? If people want to get to know Bianka and Badiva, then which track would you point them to first?
That's a difficult one. I think I'd point them to Captain Hook.
The pussy till it can't say no, me I go hook you with the pussy, yo. Squeeze so tight, you know want it to go. Jiggle, wiggle, tickle up the middle to me. Start the giggle, call me pussy never miserable. The high grade head have your brain a fizzle. Pan the bed widespread, have your lip a dribble. Start to scream when you give me a little tipple. I got them stiff nipples, eating up like a ripple. Certified, call me blood cell never sickle. Never struck when me suck off the popsicle. Hook you with the pussy, hook you with the pussy, yo.
Yeah, I think that might be my favorite as well.
Though the video's not as expensive and it's quite low budget, I think that song describes my personality and my brand a lot better in terms of the dancehall dominatrix and the dancehall erotica. And these are terms that I use in order to contextualize dancehall, because dancehall gets a lot of negative press in Jamaica, the country it was born in.
Could you explain roughly what could you explain what dancehall is? Just briefly.
Yeah, dancehall is basically a subgenre of reggae, and it was originally music that couldn't be played on radio. It's got a political element, it's got a gangster element, it's got a fantasy element, and it's got a sexual element. And the sexual element involves a lot of dancing and a lot of stage gimmicks. And I think that's the side that probably attracts people a lot more, although the gangsters will probably be attracted to the Gunman songs a lot more. The world, I think, is attracted to dancehall for the sexual side of dancehall and the sexpression, and almost like they're almost liberal. It's the liberal part of Jamaica, or the liberal part of Jamaican culture, where you are allowed to express yourself, because every square mile there's a church, and you're not allowed to use profanities after 9 o'clock, and they're very conservative. So I think dancehall's where everybody goes to express themselves.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. For the hear me, for the say shot make you wiggle, and a something for you giggle. For the man we build the gun, him build a dangerous something. Shot make you wiggle, and a something for you giggle. Some boy must think a head diggle diggle, and no cat not a figgle, no puzzle not a wriggle. That's something to give the people them. Let me say, give me a medic, let me get my rifle. Like I show you dirty nigga, all them guns stifle. Then me make another flex in an unknown vehicle. And some people.
Your own background is part Jamaican, is that right?
Yes, my mum is born in Jamaica, Spanish Town, and my mum what they call a dancehall queen, but she's not a famous dancehall queen, because in Jamaica they have dancehall queens that are not known to anybody but the dancehall scene.
Right.
They have their own sort of world. They have dances in London as well. They've got dances, for example, called Breast Affair, which is basically a celebration of breasts. And all the women come out and there's a video light and there's topless, there's see-through breasts, there's nipple tassels, there's implants, there are melons, there are grapes. And it's just a celebration of breasts. And loads of men, obviously, come to that rave because they know that they're going to get an eyeful. And, you know, you have women that are really good at, I'd say, doing gymnastics. A lot of the dancehall women in Jamaica, they're actually probably gymnasts.
Yeah, you see a lot of those dancehall videos where kind of girls kind of do a flying splits onto a man's crotch and all of those kinds of moves, which are
they're gymnastic moves.
There are also some good kind of fail videos that people should check out where kind of men typically get destroyed by a woman slightly getting her move wrong.
And there are also other sides of it where in extreme circumstances, women have actually died doing some of these acts. Like dropped off a roof, or someone's neck got broken trying to spin on their head. You know, like freak accidents happen because, you know, like there's no padding. And when they're doing their tricks and their gimmicks, it's all off the cuff. It's all freestyled. So there is an element of danger there. And I think that is also what attracts people to that side of dancehall.
I think if anything, I mean, I've always been in love with Jamaican music and culture, but probably the element of danger is part of what makes people love Jamaican culture, whether it, you know, for me, it's been with dub or jungle or whatever related sounds. But yeah, I think element of danger kind of sums up Jamaican culture in a way, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So we were talking about your songs, and yeah, so people should check out maybe Captain Hook and Margarita on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's The Birds and the Bees, I think is your most recent track.
That's my most recent track. That's on badiva.bandcamp.com. It's a track in progress, actually, because I want to kind of update the sound of it and then obviously put it out for release. And I'm going to be doing a very interesting video. I want to do like a fetish-themed Alice in Wonderland video that I'm planning at the moment. So that should be quite interesting and fun. And I'm hoping to involve a lot of the adult entertainment and fetish world people from London in that video.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. And yeah, if I can help you make connections, then let me know. And I just wanted to check one of the lines in Birds and the Bees that says, I like them young and hungry, I like them rich and old. And I was just wondering how about old and hungry? Is that a valid combination?
Well, older men are associated with wealth.
Yeah, I was asking for a friend, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just basically making reference to the range, my taste range of men.
Which excellent. So yeah, and we'll come back to, I want to talk particularly about the commercial side of sex, which is you're very explicit about in your work as well.
Yes.
I think, so would you say Black music on the whole, not just kind of Jamaican music, but American hip hop and so on, there does tend to be a lot more inherently sexual than white music?
I don't know, because Madonna was quite sexual. She was the most sexual person I remember. I remember her dry humping on stage. You know, like some of her actual concert performances as opposed to her videos, where specifically the song Like a Virgin. Yeah. When she performs that song, it's quite erotic. And then you've got Janet Jackson, who I've seen Janet Jackson do some quite erotic acts on stage as well, including bringing up a man on stage. I think in the Black culture, it's expressed a lot differently than it is in white culture, but I don't think it's less.
It seems to be, it's kind of more overt. I mean, say someone who goes to Carnival every year, I can't, there's no real white equivalent of that kind of near naked, you know, batty riders are a kind of Jamaican outdoor clothing.
Yeah, no, but I do think if you went to a burlesque show, you probably would.
Yeah.
Or if you went to a strip club, you probably would. So I think you're right in regards to the way in which sex is, can we say, packaged and marketed in European culture or Western white culture is slightly different to Black Western culture. However, I'm sure when you go to African places like that, again, they might be a lot more reserved.
Yeah, I'm sure it varies a lot in many places. Mind you, I've seen Nigerians getting down, and I mean, they
have strip clubs, but I don't think African women wear batty riders per se, unless they're Western.
Not when they're uncles anywhere nearby, definitely.
Yeah, so that is quite interesting. But then again, the Caribbean people are more heavily influenced by America and Western culture because of their history, their transatlantic history.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, it seems that a lot of the backlash against artists like you, against Cardi B, against Rihanna, and it's hard to separate how much of that is sexual prudery and how much of that is kind of closet racism, because it seems to be black, kind of white feminists often have an issue with black
artists.
music. Yeah.
Okay. There could be a racial element in terms of criticism. Black women do get heavily criticized, and it's not just by white feminists, it's also by the Black Hotep community, otherwise known as the conscious community, the Black religious community, who are the Christians and the Muslims, and the Puritans, who basically believe that these Black women are bringing, they're upholding Black exploitation and bringing Black culture into disrepute, causing and leading to the breakdown of the Black family, which has caused single parent homes, teenage mothers, and increased incarceration. They've actually linked, Black women's sexual expression all the way back to incarceration of Black men and the breakdown of the Black family. And it can be said, and they are actually coming with the same arguments that some of the white feminists might be coming with, unbeknown to white feminists who may have a racial element. They've actually got Black men in support of their views.
Yeah,
they just haven't come together as one yet.
So, there's always been attacks on women who are proud of their sexuality, but it's interesting that from a female point of view, you're seen as letting down the women, and from a Black point of view, you're seen as letting down the Black community. Whereas in fact, you're an individual with as much right to your own expression as anyone else.
I've even got friends on Facebook, women who are far more prudish than me, who make comments like, oh, well, maybe I should be like those girls that, take half naked pictures for attention. Or, like these sorts of, there's an undertone, even from women who are my friends on Facebook, who I've supported, and I am actually part of their social circles. Every now and again, I'll actually even see them commenting on women like me. And sometimes I'll go underneath and say, well, what's wrong with women like me? And they'll go, oh, no, I don't mean you. Just all the rest of them. So it's like, well, actually, you do mean me, because once you speak about women who are overtly sexual, if that's what I do as well, it automatically includes me.
Why do you think what you do makes some women feel threatened in that way?
Because they can't. There's a section of them that can't do it. And if they do, men might not find it attractive, because men have a type, and men also, they've got their taste of women that they like. And so you might do something that, and if the man doesn't find you attractive, they may not bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
In turn, you might feel a sense of rejection.
Right. So actually putting it all out there and then not being, and then not
received
having,
well.
and then they don't go for the bait, then that could be pretty bad for the ego.
That can be a very huge rejection. So not all women are able to capitalize and monetize off of their looks. Some don't know how to. You know, I've had comments from women saying, you know, I'd love to do what you do, but I wouldn't know where to start. My family would judge me. I'm a mother. You know, my daughters, I've got, you know, work colleagues, for example, on my Facebook, and I've got family members and friends and stuff like that. And I have to ask them, what is it that I'm doing? Because I actually think I'm not actually doing anything untoward.
Yeah.
These are the same people that will go on holiday and take, you know, like a full bikini picture.
Yeah.
And somehow differentiate that from a woman who takes a cleavage selfie.
Yeah. Or twerks, or, you know, whatever it is. So
some women can't twerk, so, you know, they don't want you making their life hard. Because if you do things that they can't or don't wish to, men might have those demands of their own partner, and, you know, they might not want to meet those demands.
I mean, twerking is one of those examples where kind of black music is effectively an advertisement for your sexual prowess. There's no other way to interpret that. But it's, so yeah, you can understand why some women would be kind of see that as competitive. Yeah.
And some women say, you know, well, some women go live. Like sometimes I go live and people say, are you going to twerk for us? And I'm like, well, no. do you know what I mean? I've got twerk videos. If you want to look at them, that's fine. If you want to join my OnlyFans, that's fine. If you want to go on my Instagram and check any footage or stories I've got there, that's fine. But I don't twerk on demand.
Yeah.
That's another thing about men as well. Sometimes when you're in any adult or erotic of context, they actually feel as though, I'm not sure what it is. There's a demand there's some demand there, or a sense of entitlement.
Yeah, as someone who owns a penis, I have to speak out on behalf of the male community and say that when our penis is kind of getting interested in a conversation, in some entertainment, then our brain is reduced severely to, you know, incapacity. So yeah, it's not necessarily our fault, but yeah, I guess it's something, we're just stupid. So moving on.
Fair enough.
So
he said it, not me, guys.
I know that's going to lose me my incel fans. But what I want to do is talk a bit about the WAP video itself, which I think is just great. And every time I see it, to me, it's a fantastic bit of trolling against those people we've talked about. So, you know, it's like just dangling the most delicious, beautifully presented sex in your face in a way that you're either going to enjoy or find deeply uncomfortable. But it is set in a mansion. It's got gold asses hanging off the walls. It's got, it's dripping in sex. What do you think of the video?
I think the video is gorgeous. I'd love to live in a mansion like that. It reminded me of Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Mansion, actually.
Yeah. So it's
then
kind
when it came up the gate and there was the waterfall, the first thing I thought of was Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Mansion.
One of the reasons that WAP made me think of you and your work was it's not just an expression of sex. It's more than that. It's an expression of being proud that you can, that sex is a commercial transaction, and that's nothing to be ashamed of, but actually
sex as a commodity. Yes.
Sex and a lot of people downright
growing up with my childhood, I grew up with my grandma, and I remember all the Caribbean women in my family. The only reasons why, or the things you should look for when you're looking for a man, the first thing they used to say is make sure he's got money. You know, make sure he's working, make sure he's financially stable. That's kind of like the main, that comes before how he treats you.
Yeah.
That comes before his values. And it comes before his loyalty, his intelligence, his level of education, and his plans for you in the next 5 years. All that they kind of focus on is, you know, make sure he's got a good job.
Yeah,
Which
and
is the same thing as, which is basically saying that having a relationship with a man is some sort of transaction.
Yeah.
If he has to have something, if he has to have something to be able to look after you, because society said men were providers initially. I know feminism said that men are not providers, women can provide also now. So they believe that they've changed that dynamic because women were only using sex as a commodity because they weren't allowed to use their brain. Is that the understanding that feminists have come with?
I guess that's a part of some feminist
so all
narratives.
sex work is it's not choice, basically. It's through lack of choice.
Yeah, and what's interesting is actually it's not just the anti-sex work feminists who say that, it's the pro-sex work feminists as well. They say we need to legalize sex work, not because we want to do sex work, but because patriarchy and capitalism makes us do sex work. So even the feminists who are in favor of sex work think that it's forced on them by men.
So what do you think about capitalism and sex work?
I mean, I've written, sex work is rooted in our biology. So sex work goes back millions of years before capitalism. Started. I've written about this. But yeah, I mean, sex work is innate to us human
I should
beings.
probably actually read your book. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, read my book. I'll send you an article.
If you send me the book, then I can buy it and I'll read it and see what your views are, because I've grappled a lot with so much different ideologies, and also as an activist as well, and someone who was molested in childhood. I've been told when I went on an interview, for example, that I'm hypersexual. And when I looked into what hypersexual meant, it's actually some sort of mental health disorder where you can't operate outside of sex or sexual expression. And that's not me at all.
It's a slur. It's what they used to call nymphomaniac in the old days. Hypersexual is the new scientific sounding variant.
That's not true of me at all. So the person's obviously looked at my my Instagram and decided that I'm hypersexual. And I also looked at, apparently, women who've been, or girls who've been molested at a young age, apparently hypersexuality is a side effect of
supposedly.
I think this is abuse.
I think this is all quite I think this is all quite dubious science, and I think it's a way that
it is. So sometimes you can find me grappling. I'm thinking, are they trying to say that me liking this dress because it's an underboob dress, and me liking heels and to look pretty, and me enjoying men finding me attractive, are they saying that's because I was molested and not because I'm a female and I enjoy being...
It's a slur that a lot of people throw around, especially, and I've seen the anti-sex feminists use it. And yeah, I remember this friend of mine who was a stripper years ago went to Parliament to watch there was an inquiry about closing strip clubs, and I remember her sitting there fuming because she said that there were women giving evidence in Parliament saying that the reason strippers strip is because they were molested as children, and so it's a way of undermining their choices. And she'd said, and she had said, no, she was a journalist who decided to quit journalism and become a stripper.
I mean, when I was molested as a child, I started to wear hoodies and tracksuits for the majority of my teenage life, and I'd cover up, and most people thought I was a boy when I was a teenager. That's how it impacted me. So when I reclaimed my femininity and didn't allow that experience to dictate how other men viewed me or how I should be viewed by other men who are not abusive, I thought taking back my sexuality and femininity was a form of empowerment against the fact that I shouldn't have to cover up because a paedophile molested me. It doesn't mean that that man over there looking at me is a paedophile. He's a man that thinks I'm attractive, and it's okay to be attractive to men now because you're an adult. You don't need to wear a hoodie and a tracksuit.
I just want to kind of bring it back to kind of sexual commerce and to WAP, really to kind of one last issue, because WAP has had a massive backlash from the standard kind of conservatives and from the woke left, and Russell Brand, who's kind of
I watched Russell Brand's, I did watch his video. He went viral on Twitter actually with this rant saying that basically women are doing what men have programmed them to do, and they think it's liberating.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean,
and he goes, how can you be liberated, guys, when that's what men want you to do? That's how men want you to behave. You've been programmed, basically. Wake up.
Analysis. My key point I would like to make is, do we achieve equality by aspiring to the values established by the forces or authors of the hierarchy and system itself, i.e., do women achieve equality by aspiring to and replicating the values that have been established by male desire? Essentially, it's an emulation of a template that already exists and was established by males. Is it equality if the template has already been established by the former dominator? The answer is no.
So stupid. I mean, what he's doing is repeating, this is standard feminist theory, which is the way that they attack sexualized women I hate that word, sexual women, by saying that you're doing what patriarchy wants you to do, and patriarchy is this evil kind of male power structure, and therefore by being yourself, you're letting down all women. And so what he's doing is just repeating feminist.
And then when you're black, what Russell fails to understand is when you're black on top of that, you're also letting down the whole black community and taking us back 100 years from the black exploitation era. And a lot of the time, Sarah Bartman is used to shame black women and suppress and subdue black women's sexual reality, sexual expression or sexuality, because Sarah Bartman had a huge derriere and she was paraded in some sort of Belgian zoo, and she was a sex worker against her will, according to documents, and died of STDs. And because of Sarah, black women are not allowed to monetize on their sexuality.
Yeah, it's one of those narratives, isn't it?
Because basically you're disrespecting her memory.
But I mean, to me, it comes down to ultimately to one thing, and they always bring it down to.
So what does Russell want? He wants, Pornhub banned, because I know there's a ban Pornhub movement, because they come underneath my twerking videos and some of my content saying, you're causing people to sin, ban Pornhub.
Yeah, the ban Pornhub movement's a perfect example of where you've got religious conservatives and kind of woke left-wing revolutionaries on the same side, and the revolutionaries say, well, this is capitalism, commoditizing sex, and all of that nonsense.
Even though sex is said to be the oldest profession in the world.
And it absolutely is. Remind me, I will send you those articles. But
that's an English proverb. Oh, the oldest profession in the world.
No, I mean, the first thing that was traded was between two humans was probably sex for some meat. And this is, I won't go off on that tangent. But I mean, I want to finish on one point, which is that point that people like Russell Brand bang on about, which is empowerment. They keep insisting that you're not empowered, but the only person who can say whether you feel empowered or not, the only person who can tell you how you feel about it is you. And so the ultimate question is
empowerment, like you said, I think empowerment is personal. In my story, I went through many years in my teenage years of suppressing my sexuality due to sexual abuse. And so sexual expression for me, without feeling bad about it or feeling that it's wrong or feeling that I did something to cause it, because in the Caribbean family, specifically in my family, they'll look at you as the victim, as, you lured the man somehow.
There's
You know,
always this thing that men know.
did you wear your towel too tightly when you left the bathroom? Did you sit too close to him on the sofa? Everything's your fault.
So, but
There's
when
no
it comes down to
accountability on the actual rapist.
so when it comes down to,
so for me, sexpression is my form of empowerment.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think this is where Russell Brand and the anti-porn feminists and everyone else are just liars, because they can't tell you if you're empowered or not. Only you can say if you're empowered. And if, you know, the ultimate question is, Badiva, you know, how does your performance make you feel? How does it make you feel as a person?
It makes me feel strong. It makes me feel in control, that I've got ownership. It makes me feel attractive. It makes me feel beautiful.
I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda. Holding my Beretta, sipping on my margarita. Claim you like it hot, but you ain't bout that gasolina. I'm a bougie mamacita, Bediva senorita. Coulda never be me, die trying. Woulda never know badness, stop lying. Shoulda never crossed me, stay crying. High like a kite, still flying. Coulda never be me, die trying. Woulda never know badness, stop lying. Shoulda never crossed me, stay crying. High like a kite, still flying. I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda. Holding my Beretta, sipping on my margarita. Claim you like it hot, but you ain't bout that gasolina. I'm a bougie mamacita, Bediva senorita. I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda. Holding my Beretta, sipping on my margarita. Claim you like it hot, but you ain't bout that gasolina. I'm a bougie mamacita, Bediva senorita.